Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
We tend to measure whether something's working in the short term based on how we feel in the short term, when that can't be the measuring stick that we use. Because to get real help in any part of life, whether it's to get remission for cancer or to get healing from a marriage that's in crisis, the solution is probably going to have some temporary discomfort that is part of the healing process.
Hey friend, you're listening to the AllMomDoes podcast, part of the Purposely Podcast Network, and I am your host, Julie Lyles Carr. I have to tell you, when I take a look at the episodes that really popped, because I take that as the way that you're letting me know where you're at in your life, what's going on, things you're really concerned about or you want guidance on, things you're excited about. Something that comes up time and time again is anytime we have conversation about marriage, wow, y'all show up. Anytime we talk about dating, anytime we talk about romance, there's just a lot of need out there. I think if I'm interpreting what I'm seeing correctly in terms of trying to figure out how to do this modern marriage, romance, relationship thing, which is why I am so glad to bring you a couple of people who I know are going to be able to bring the goods today. Ashley and Dave Willis, thanks so much for being with me.
Thank you, Julie. We're so excited.
Oh, it's just a delight to see you. We all got to meet and became fast friends at a Compassion event where we got to shoot this really beautiful podcast series called Nuance. Mm-hmm. And immediately I just fell in love with you guys. I'm so excited to have you here today. Give me a window into your world, where you live, kids, dogs, all the stuff, and the beautiful work and ministry that you do.
Oh, well, we are Dave and Ashley Willis. We've been married almost 24 years. Actually, in a week, we'll be married 24 years. And we've got 4 boys ranging in ages from 10 to 20 and a little dog named Chi-Chi as well. And we live in Augusta, Georgia. We've lived here almost 20 years and life is busy and beautiful and full. And we just love it.
Yeah. Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. Dave, tell me about your journey to going into marriage ministry, because I got to tell you, when I'd been married, 3-4 years, I thought I had a lot to say about how marriage should be done. And now rounding the curve to 36, I'm like, man, we're idiots. So I'm curious when I hear somebody take it on with such elegance and such veracity and loveliness, I'm going, how did you gather the courage to decide to do marriage ministry? I want to hear about this.
Oh man. What freed us up, I think, to be able to step into that space, because we had a burden for it. We had a passion for it. We believe in marriage. We want to help. And we did from a young age, but we thought, well, we're not experts. What is it? If that even exists, it's certainly not us. And I think what freed us up is realizing that God had more called us to be encouragers in the marriage space than experts. So we don't have to come at it as like, hey, gather around, children, we have all the answers, but hey, this is what we're learning. Let's lock arms with other people and let's encourage each other on the way. And as we've done that, we've learned a ton from people from all over the world sharing their experiences with us. And then we've done, independent research. Ashley's gotten a master's degree in biblical counseling along the way, and now is counseling couples as well. But at the heart of it, like we're just trying to encourage couples and cheer them on in a world where there are so many distractions and so many things that can hold them back from experiencing the fullness and frankly, the awesomeness of what God intended marriage to be. And we just want to help couples not settle for less than God's best.
I love that. Ashley, what are you seeing in your work, in engaging with so many people today about marriage in 2 ways? What seems to be timeless? What seems to be unique challenges in marriages today? I've heard leading relationship expert Esther Perel talk about, you're probably going to have like 3 or 4 marriages in your lifetime, maybe to the same person, because we are experiencing such changes. Our expectations of marriage are higher than they've ever been. So what are you seeing in the field that you go, yeah, that's recognizable across the centuries, people have experienced that? And what seems unique to a snapshot of today?
Man, I love this question. So I would say number 1, communication is an ongoing issue for most people, because here's the deal is we never arrive in marriage. So just when we think we've gotten the communication flow figured out and we kind of go on autopilot, then we get woken up again because there's a new challenge. We're getting older. We have new challenges. If we're parents, we have kid challenges and work changes and all those things. And transitions tend to cause those kind of rifts. And when we're not willing to bend or learn something new about our spouse or even change our approach, then we really end up frustrated. And that's when communication breaks down. And so I would say week to week, I'm always talking to people about how can we do communication better? And we all have room to grow in that area. I would say as far as something that is more of kind of this day and age, it's the distractions we have. I think so many times we are going through marriage and going through parenting, and we're just wondering why there's this huge disconnect with our spouse and our kids. And it's because we have these little devices, in front of us all the time. And we try to let our grunts and our half-hearted answers, get us somewhere, but really it's not getting us anywhere. And we're getting distracted and sometimes going to it to be distracted because we want to avoid our problems, and avoidance never solves anything. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to couples in session, it's just kind of getting both of them to agree that they need to give each other actual FaceTime, and that, texts aren't going to cut it. That's a tool, but it's not going to cut it. We've actually got to spend time together and really lean into each other and get to know this person. Cause you're right. That quote is so spot on, that you don't have just one marriage to the same person. You're going to have multiple marriages over time to the same person, because we're all changing and the world is changing around us.
Right. Dave, talk to me, because you guys have 4 boys, and I don't think this is only specific to boys. In our cast of characters, we have 5 daughters, 3 sons. I will say one thing that's interesting to me with my son who's just turned 18. So I have a son who is going to be 29. I have a son who's in the middle, and he's going to be, he's going to be 24. And then I have this baby son of mine who's just turned 18. All of them have loved the video gaming, the gaming world, all of that. For the youngest one, what's available today, how immediately available, and what a legitimate community he has developed on places like Discord and things like that. It's a real thing. Now, again, my girls love to do some gaming and that kind of thing too. But when I project forward, when I have some young women coming to me today who are married, they're 25, 26, 27, and they're talking to me about not only husband being at work all day, but then coming home and entering a community that is all about this gaming thing. How are you guys working through that with young couples today? Because I have to tell you, that never would have been on any kind of content about preparing for marriage maybe 10 years ago, was having to talk through this gaming thing. So give us some ideas and encouragement, a snapshot of what that's looking like in terms of being yet another form of distraction. To Ashley's point, another form of distraction that I hear coming up more and more as a big issue in marriages today.
That is a great question, Julie. And as a father of boys, we totally see that. Our boys are deep into that world. We're navigating just as parents right now, trying to help them find balance there for later in life. We're trying to help their future wives by helping them establish boundaries now, because they find community there. There's a lot of their daily interactions. There are people there. We've got even our youngest son, who's only 10. He plays online with a friend from school that just moved to New Zealand. And now this friend is in New Zealand, doesn't have any friends there yet. And they connect almost every day, at least briefly, and they'll play and they'll talk and they'll engage in this world. And I'm thankful for the technology that makes stuff like that possible. But so many guys get this out of balance, right? And it is nuanced. It's not something like pornography where you can look at that form of escapism and say, well, that's just wrong on every level. There's nothing positive at all that comes out of that. And we talk a lot about porn for that reason. But with video games, it's harder to just throw the whole thing out and say, there's nothing good here, because, guys are connecting and finding community. Now, in our case, when we were starting out in marriage, there weren't quite the options. But I didn't fall, even back then in the olden days, I had guys that were pretty deep into the games that were around then. And I pulled out of that pretty quick, because Ashley, having grown up in a girl house, she had a very low tolerance for video games. Yes. And I wanted to have sex sometimes. And I knew that if I was going to be the video game guy, that was like the biggest turnoff in the world for her.
That was the ick. That was the
ick.
And I'm like, all right, well, I want you more than I want, PlayStation. So that's an easy one. But for these guys that have developed a lifestyle around it, and maybe, some level of addiction, even,
well, there's dopamine hits they get from it. There's I think for husbands and wives,
coming into marriage, you have to have eyes wide open about what are those dopamine hits we keep going back to. And for women, it might look different. I think a lot of it can be more tied to, to TikTok and social. But all of us are going to have these digital dopamine hits that we're going to have to keep at bay so that we can really connect in the real world and have meaningful conversations about what boundaries need to look like there, for the marriage to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think when we conduct relationships across digital platforms, again, they can be very real relationships. And I think about too, one of my best friends, we only lived in the same town for a handful of months in early marriage. And here we are all these years later. She's now about 2.5, 3 hours away. We meet once a quarter in person for lunch. We have conducted the relationship primarily through phone. There have been times we've lived much further apart than that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we should be discounting these
Sure.
relationships that take
Yeah,
place
totally.
in these ways. I think that sometimes I hear advice like, well, it should never have a place in whatever. And I'm with you, Dave. I don't know that that's really a legitimate way to look at it. And yet at the same time, to be reminded it's not the same thing as face to face. We recently worked through with our kids. We were starting to see that we were having conversations via text that were serious conversations about different decisions people were trying to make. And they were looking for guidance on this or alerting us to that. And I finally came in and I said, look, guys, I'm not meaning to sound all Gen X, but sometimes these are not conversations that need to be done in this way because I can't see your face. I can't hear your
Yeah,
reactions.
exactly.
I can't hear the tonality in which you are communicating. Mike and I, of course, through the course of a day, find ourselves texting quite a bit just to stay on top of different things and handle things and hear how his day's going and how mine's going. And yet I'm still floored at how much gets missed just in trying to conduct relationship in that way. So how do you, Ashley, encourage couples to really make that time? Because that's the flip side too. You guys are parents of a busy household. I am. I know we talk about let's get in that consistent date night and let's do this, that, and the other. Honestly, there are times that I get to the end of a week and I'm like, I like this guy and it's fun watching him brush his teeth, but where was the time going to come to make sure that we had time for that level of intentional interaction? How do we do that in such a busy, distracted time?
Yes, I think we do have to be super intentional. And I think too, I mean, we can make space for all these fun things like video games or being on our phones or just fun activities, things that aren't otherwise like bad things. But we just have to be super intentional about making sure that our marriage gets a top priority, right? Like as Christians, it's laid out before us in the Bible. It's clear it needs to be God first, then your marriage, then your kids, and then, your family and friends. And when we keep our priorities in that line, we're going to have a better relationship. But I think we live in a world, again, like you said, is so busy and distracted. And so I know for us, it's looked like putting these good things, like saying we can't have all these good things at once, right? Like, so sometimes we need to put like this certain activity on the shelf for this season so that we can make more space for our marriage. Like if we look at our schedule and there's never any family dinners or there's never any like time just at the end of the day to talk to each other for 30 minutes face to face, then we're too busy. And I think it's just making sure that when it comes down to it, we're not having to fight for that attention in marriage. I love it that Dave has never made me feel bad when I come to him and I'm like, man, it's been a day. Can we like skip this thing tonight and have time together? I know he's going to say yes because he cares about me and wants to connect with me. And, in the counseling space, I see a lot that spouses feel like they are constantly having to fight with their spouse for attention when it comes to work, friends, even kids. And I think that we need to make sure that we're not making our spouse feel that way. They know that they are a top priority in the relationships within our life. And they don't need to be made to feel bad to have that time. And, to your point, I think some seasons you're going to be able to have the 3-hour date night once a week. Other seasons, maybe not. Like I will tell you, our older kids can watch our younger kids now. So we don't need to necessarily, and our kids are a lot older too, so we don't need to necessarily have the 4-hour date night, but we might slip away for 45 minutes and have a quick dinner, 5 minutes from us. And that's good for us. So I think talking about what you need and being able to fill each other's kind of connection tank in that way is just really important.
I think that's beautiful. And you said something that I just wish we could embroider on a pillow or put in bold Comic Sans font because you don't have to do everything all at once. I had this sense, I don't know that I have deep FOMO. My husband would self-admit, say he's got deep FOMO. But when you take on some of these little things that we say to each other, these anecdotes about, all we've got is today and you've got to make the most of today and don't put off and do the bucket list and on and on. there's some wisdom in that, but there is also wisdom in saying, hey, there are going to be some activities that they're going to be for a later season, Lord
Yes.
willing, they're
Yeah.
going to be for a later season. You don't have to be practicing to be the next golf pro today when the toddler is still at home. You don't have to be in the book club that is 6 different events and on and on and on. That
Mhm.
may be for a different season. And yet so often we feel that sense of urgency. We're afraid we're missing out, and
Mhm.
the time could be there for the marriage. We're just
Right.
filling it with a lot of other stuff. Dave, I
Exactly.
have a question for you, because we laughed before we started recording just about the reality of when you say, I'm going to write a book on parenting. Well, buckle up, because you're going
Yeah,
to get to
exactly.
experience some interesting parenting stuff. If you're doing it for
Mhm.
marriage, buckle up. You're going to find some interesting stuff on marriage. And I find often that some of the seasons in which Mike and I were speaking on marriage in ministry settings, or when I was covering that as a topic when I was doing women's ministry, you know, honestly, some of the ministry stuff was getting in the way of the marriage. It was,
Mhm.
so busy, so much going on. Even the level, to some degree, we've made our churches, our faith communities more complex in a lot of ways today, right? Like there's children's church and greeters and this thing and that thing and on and on and on. And you can end up in good things that should be nurturing, spending so much time, whether that is vocational ministry, whether that's volunteering a lot in ministry settings, that you're not safeguarding the marriage. So, Dave, what do you and Ashley do to make sure that you're able to show up both vulnerably, hey, we had a fight on the way here, but at the same time, overall nurturing and maintaining the health of your marriage so that you can be encouragers in marriage?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a lot of what you said. I mean, vulnerability. Um, we've tried to, from the very beginning, just say, listen, for this to be sustainable and real and helpful to ourselves and others, like we can't ever put on a show. Like we have to be real about what we're going through, what we've been through, like what we're going through now. I mean, like I was in a grumpy mood this morning. Like Ashley's, talking me off the ledge because I'm in bad mood, and she's, we're living real life and processing real struggles, and and we try to be open about that, finding that line with discretion where there's certain things that are just for us, obviously, but as much as we can, sharing about what we're going through. And then as it relates to just sustainability and making sure our marriage is a priority, we're like, we can't do marriage ministry at the expense of our marriage. We just can't. And so we look at our schedule a lot. We have tons of conversations about the calendar, and we're removing things a lot, good things, because pruning, the Bible uses a lot of pruning language. And with pruning, whether you're gardening or whether you're looking at your calendar, you don't cut off something just because it's dead. You cut off stuff that's thriving sometimes to make room for what's more. And so we have to have hard conversations often about what are not just the bad things that need to be removed, and it's usually what are good things that we need to cut out just to create margin for us, for our kids, so that we can do this for the long haul.
You think that you are in the final round of getting all this parenting done. You've got kids who are in high school, you're starting to think about college, and you're thinking, this is it. I'm Julie Lyles Carr. I am a podcaster and I'm a mom of 8. And here's what I want you to know about George Fox University. It's a different way of doing college. Why? Because yes, it's all about getting a fantastic degree to set your kid up for their future. They have 60 undergrad programs available at George Fox University. But that's not where the story ends. It's also about equipping them spiritually. If you get out of college with a degree, but you don't have a closer relationship with God, that obviously is going to deeply impact what your young adult life looks like. So for your kiddos, I want you to consider, what would it mean for your child to be able to go to George Fox University, where 93% of George Fox students say they now have a closer relationship with Jesus? George Fox University is located in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. They have 23 Division III athletic programs, and 100% of students at George Fox University receive financial aid. George Fox University is dedicated to their promise. They want every student to be known for who God created them to be. So listen, parents, yeah, you are getting into some of those final laps,
But you definitely want to make these last laps count in a big way when it comes to the legacy of your parenting. So be sure and check out for your student georgefox.edu. That's georgefox.edu.
Right. I love that you notate for us that pruning is not just about the stuff that's not working. It's also about things that can look really beautiful and are a lot of fun and yet need to go. That's a really great pearl of wisdom there. Ashley, talk to me, since you're working in the counseling space more now. I've seen something, I'm guilty of it, in which I would sometimes, or I've seen others do the same thing, in an event, a marriage conference, a book, a small group that was really intended to be encouragement for marriage, trying to use it as a patch for places where a marriage was in crisis. Talk to me about this place where we can sometimes hide between, we can hide behind things that are good things, encouragement and ideas, and you could do this and what about that, when we're actually not dealing with maybe something systemic that needs to be handled. How do you handle that?
Oh man, I do think that happens quite a lot. There are a lot of awesome, marriage resources out there and conferences and different things that people attend. But I think that, if I'm sitting across from a couple where very quickly there's like a rise, like there's like this anger that is just right on the surface, that's a sign to me that there's been something going on for a long time, and there's a much deeper issue than just not being able to get on the same page with communication. There's maybe some unresolved anger, or maybe even something from their past that has nothing to do with their spouse that is lying really deep in there, that's just they've never dealt with. And so I'm able, there's been multiple times where I've been working with a couple for let's say like 4 or 5 sessions, and because I think sometimes we get so used to the wound we have that it feels normal. And I think it takes sometimes somebody else looking into it and saying, wow, like that's not something you have to live with anymore. Like you can actually heal from that. Like you don't have to go around half-hearted anymore. And actually it's not serving you well or your spouse well. And so we'll find that out. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this person actually needs some individual work to address the thing from their past or whatever, it is to get some healing from. And so I would encourage, couples, if that's you, if you have this very short fuse, or if you walk in a room and your spouse is there and you don't even say a word to them or look at them or even acknowledge their existence, that's like, a flashing check engine light on your dashboard of your car for your marriage, right? And I would just say, and that's not to shame anybody, we all go through different seasons like that, but it's important to not keep on putting a little Band-Aid on a gaping wound that needs to be, cleaned out and gutted and stitched up, like there's all this other stuff that needs to happen instead of just, little patchwork over it. I think it's important to get the help that we need and know that there's strength in that. There's so much strength in reaching out for help. I mean, we've had moments like that over, our marriage where we've needed to get individual counseling and counseling together. Yeah. And so I just encourage people to not be scared of that. Like there's such strength in that.
Dave, what do you find is the biggest hesitation? I know there are a lot of different reasons people can have hesitation in reaching out for help, but what are some of the primary ones that you see when you encounter couples who it's clear it's not working great or things are not exactly green, and yet they still seem to be very hesitant about getting to the place, the help, the clean out that they need?
Well, I mean, the short answer is none of us like to be made to feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And if we're in an uncomfortable situation in our marriage, but the solution is going to require even more discomfort, then sometimes we push away from that. I mean, imagine a person has stage 3 cancer and, you give them an option. You can go to chemotherapy or you can go to the spa. And instead of chemotherapy, you can get massaged and pampered. Now, in the short term, you leave the spa and you'll think that worked. I feel better. That must have worked. You leave the chemotherapy and in the short term, you think that didn't work at all. I feel worse. Mm-hmm. And we tend to measure whether something's working in the short term based on how we feel in the short term, when that can't be the measuring stick that we use. Because to get real help in any part of life, whether it's to get remission for cancer or to get healing from a marriage that's in crisis, the solution is probably going to have some temporary discomfort that is part of the healing process. And you have to just go into it and embrace that. Say, yeah, it's not going to be comfortable but this is going to help us get to a place that is comfortable, that is strong.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to commit to the process. That doesn't mean we don't have spa days along the way too. We do things just because they feel good and just because in the short term they help us relax or whatever. But the long-term strategy has to be that, like, we don't want to settle to live the way we're living. And so many couples settle to live into a barely sustainable existence that's not joyful, that's not healthy, but they're like, I think I can sustain this until death if we just don't rock the boat. And God wants so much more for you than that. He wants your marriage to thrive. He wants you to be best friends with your spouse. And
Right.
you don't have to settle for less than that, but you do have to do some work to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley, how do you handle it when you have a spouse come to you and say, hey, I think we've got issues and there are things going on, but my partner just does not want to admit that, see it, come in to talk with anyone. They just want nothing to do with it. Because I have to imagine there's a listener out there saying, hey, I would love to come do the work that Dave's talking about. I think it'd be
Right.
amazing, but I just cannot seem to get my partner off high center on this. I know that we don't want to talk about strategies, techniques, and we all know we can't make someone change. But
Right.
for the person who finds themselves in that position, what do you suggest?
Right. Well, I feel like that's probably the toughest position to be in because it's just feeling like you're doing marriage all alone. And I think a lot of times it's just that the other spouse is in denial, or again, like what Dave said, they just don't want to have any kind of discomfort, or they don't want to have to change what they're doing because maybe they like the dynamic because they're not having to put forth the effort. And so I would just tell them that you got to keep on going back to your spouse and telling them, listen, I love you, but I love you too much to let things keep going this way. And, you may not believe me in that we're in crisis, but if one of us feels like we're in crisis, then we are in crisis, right? And I always tell people, a lot of times we tend to dance around the issue, but it's important to come at it from a heart level by using those I statements, by saying like, I feel this way. And, you may not know this, but I feel this way. Like, give them the benefit of the doubt, but saying like, right now, I feel like I'm in this marriage alone. I feel like when I talk to you, there's nobody there listening. I feel like that we're stagnant. I don't feel like I really know you. I can't remember the last time that we actually had a conversation where we actually shared something with each other. And I would love to get help. And, and I'm in this and I want to keep working at this, but I really need you to come alongside me. And because the truth of the matter, the hard truth of the matter is it takes two people to be married, right? And with God's help, God can do a miracle in that other person's life. But I think in the interim of waiting on that person, really dig into your prayer life and keep believing that God is doing that work, but also, talk to your spouse about it. I think ignoring it's not going to solve anything.
Right. There's a great tool out there called nonviolent communication. There's an app called the iGrok app that can really help frame for you to be able to speak from that position of how you feel. I
Yes.
feel that does not come across necessarily as accusatory
Exactly.
to your partner. And it's not one of those lists that sometimes you're always going to find the exact word that captures how you're feeling, but it does help remove some of the heat, some of the steam that could feel accusatory.
Right.
It's again called nonviolent communication. Weird title for a list of words,
I
but
know.
very helpful, very helpful. Dave, something that I'm seeing with some younger couples today. Now, I've seen it in older couples who've been around for a while, but I'm seeing it in some younger ones too that I think is quite fascinating. I think when Mike and I got married, there was a lot of conversation about conflict and managing conflict and dealing with conflict and how do you handle conflict and how do you, fighting fair and da 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 da. Today, I'm seeing something. I have my theories about why I'm seeing it, but honestly, it's like an apathy. It's just sort of like, all right, you're not happy. Okay. Like I'm like, where's the passion? Where's the fighting for the relationship? And yet I'm seeing it enough that I'm like, okay. So are you noticing kind of a culture of apathy? Are you noticing a culture where what we want to see in terms of healthy connection, there's guardedness? Is this something that you guys are having show up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And so few people have so astutely pointed out something that really is so widespread. But apathy is a crisis, like a broad, widespread crisis. And man, to diagnose where that apathy comes from, sweetie, you're more like in the counseling space. What do you think about why there's so much apathy?
Oh,
I definitely
man.
agree that there is apathy.
Well, I think we all come into marriage with different expectations, and we have stories and we have hopes and we have pictures that we're so hoping that will come to fruition that we don't necessarily voice, and we sometimes don't even consciously know is there. And I think for a lot of people, that bubble has been burst. And instead of doing the work and the self-reflection aspect and then even bringing it to their spouse, or maybe they tried and it was kind of like those first couple times they tried, it didn't land, or they didn't get the response they had hoped for, and so they just stopped trying. And I think that they're like, well, I'm in this now and marriage is for life, and it's just so hard to get them to see it my way, so I'm just going to make it bearable and just do that, because they just get used to it. I think that we can get used to just about anything. And I think that what we end up doing is filling that void with our kids, friendships, hobbies, work. And we can, if we're busy enough, we can act like it's not there. But I think over time, and we saw this in 2020, when all the world comes to a halt and all of a sudden we're in the same house and we have to face each other, they realize, like, I don't even know this person anymore. I mean, there's like an epidemic of empty nesters becoming divorced, because they're like, okay, we raised the kids, I don't know you anymore, I want a new life, I want to start over, and they're just leaving. And it's so sad because they've invested, a lot of times like 25 years of their life and built this family, and they just over time they had that apathy come in and they just didn't do anything. So I just want to give people hope, and that it just takes one of you going first and saying, I miss you. Like, I miss you and I feel lonely, and I'm not blaming you, I'm blaming myself in this too. I don't know where I lost sight of what our marriage could be, but I've been sad and I want to get that back, because I did marry you for a reason. And I know, we're not the same two people who got married on that day, but I want to work at it and I want to get to know you again.
I think that's such great advice, because it's something that, I think we do a lot of diagnostics around high conflict relationships,
Yes.
but we
Yes.
don't talk a lot about apathetic relationships. They just
Mhm.
fly under the radar. So I appreciate you unpacking that. You guys have something coming up that I think is really a great tool. It's called the Marriage Breakthrough Experience. You're going to actually get to do it at your home church in Augusta, Georgia. Talk to me about what that experience is, who would be a great candidate to be at an event like that, and what your hope is that you hope couples walk away with.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. It's I would say we were talking about the difference between crisis versus non-crisis. I would say this is not a crisis event. We have a lot of great crisis events that partner ministries do that we would love to point people to if you're in crisis. But this is more of an enrichment, a very intentional enrichment experience. And maybe even adding a layer to that, an enrichment experience for people who are interested in doing marriage ministry themselves, because there will be an aspect of training. And many of the people who've come in the past have that heart. They want to not only grow in their relationship, but they want to get the tools needed to be able to minister in their home church or beyond in the area of marriage ministry. So there'll be an element of online coaching that we'll do with each couple individually, and then 2-day, very fun, very intentional experience in Augusta, Georgia, where we live, with some great food, some great moments, a vow renewal on a riverboat at the end. So some
Yes.
fun moments. And we intentionally keep it small. We cap it at 20 couples. So at the time of this recording, there's still space for September, and we'd love to have you. So yeah, reach out if you want more information about that.
That's right.
And you guys have so many great things also going on in addition to this one. So Ashley, give us a couple other things that are coming up for people who have an interest in really growing in their relationship.
Yes. So if you go to daveandashley.com/events, we have all of our events there, but we go to churches all around the country. We have a full fall calendar that people can go see, and a lot in the spring. One of the things we're excited about is next April, we're going to do our second annual Marriage and Family Cruise. We just did one this year and it was so much fun. We're like, let's do it again. We're going to be on Wonder of the Seas with Royal Caribbean. And that again is limited to a certain number of couples. So it's first come, and sign up. First get to go, but it's so much fun. And this is something where, you get to go and experience the cruise. We have on the sea day, we have some sessions. But one of the best things about events like this is you get to also know other married couples, Christian married couples, and really have community. That's one thing I think that so many of us are lacking is just community, like good community. And, walking away from those events, both the Marriage Breakthrough Experience and this cruise experience, you really get to have friends for life, because, when you're in those close spaces for a short amount of time and you have dinner together and you have all these moments together, you can really get to know people. And it's such a beautiful thing. So we encourage everybody to check it out.
I love that you guys have those experiences. And where can the listener go to follow you guys on Instagram and website, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're on Instagram at Dave and Ashley Willis, all spelled out, which is kind of a long handle, but once you get there, you'll have a good time. And so, yeah, you can go there, and then just go into our website, daveandashley.com is a great one-stop shop for all of our resources, that free ebook, our event schedule, and you can contact us directly through the site as well.
Fantastic. Well, Ashley and Dave, thank you so much for letting me have part of your day today. It's just great to reunite and reconnect. I am so thankful for all that you guys do.
You're the best, Julie. Thanks for the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, friend, you know what to do. Rebecca has those show notes for you. It's going to have all the links that Dave and Ashley have talked about, and you can check out their events and resources, all that great stuff. Be sure and go to allmomdoes.com for that community. It's women just like you. The stuff that you're grappling with, trying to figure out, you're going to find friends there. We love when you come and visit us there. And I want to hear from you too. Come over to my DMs on Instagram. That's mainly where I hang out, Julie Lyles Carr. I want to hear about topics, guests, questions, all the things, because that helps us make sure that we are meeting you right where you are. And that is definitely our heart. So on behalf of all the All Mom Does team, I want to thank you for being here, spending this time with me, and I will see you next time on the All Mom Does podcast.